Have you ever walked away from a conversation with this, like, nagging, completely unavoidable gut feeling that something was just totally off?
Oh, absolutely. Everyone has.
Right. I mean, they said all the exact right things, they smiled at the right times,
Yeah.
and your brain is sitting there logically analyzing the data saying, hey, everything is fine. That was a totally standard interaction.
Right, checking all the boxes.
Exactly, but your stomach is practically yelling they are totally lying to you. Or, maybe not even lying, just concealing something massive.
Yeah, holding something back.
You know exactly what I'm talking about. You're nodding right now just listening to this.
It is a totally universal human experience, and honestly, it is incredibly frustrating.
It really is.
What you're describing is that jarring, visceral disconnect between the highly curated words we are hearing and the invisible nonverbal signals our primitive brain is desperately trying to process in the background.
It feels like a glitch in the matrix, honestly.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
A total glitch.
Well, it's a glitch that we are going to fix today. We are going straight into the hard, data-driven behavioral psychology of decoding human behavior in this deep dive.
And not the TikTok pseudoscience kind either.
Definitely not. Because let's be honest, we all secretly want that cheat code to human interaction.
Well, for sure. We crave it.
I see those online listicles constantly. You know the ones, 5 telltale signs your boss is lying?
Or crossed arms mean they hate your outfit?
Yes. And we click them every single time. But the actual science of reading people isn't about becoming some parlor trick human lie detector.
Far from it. I mean, when people hear reading people, their minds immediately go to playing, like, psychological chess with their coworkers.
Right, or acting like a TV interrogator in a dark room.
Exactly. The true objective, the actual clinical value of decoding behavior, it isn't about manipulation at all.
So what is it really about then?
It's about building radically deeper, more authentic connections. It's about recognizing the hidden emotional engines that are driving the people around you every single day.
Hidden engines. I like that.
Yeah, because most of the time, they're being driven by these forces against their own conscious will.
Wow. But okay, to get that cheat code, to truly understand those hidden engines, we have to start with a massive, somewhat painful ego check.
Oh, the ego check is mandatory.
Because as much as I like to think of myself as a highly intuitive people person, the literature basically suggests I am probably terrible at this.
We all are,
It's
unfortunately.
not alone in my delusion.
Not at all. The vast majority of people walk around believing they have this supernatural gift for judging character.
Oh yeah, my gut is never wrong, that whole thing.
Exactly. But the science paints a very different, highly flawed picture. When we think we are observing someone, what we are usually doing is projecting and assuming.
So we're just guessing.
Basically, we fall victim to cognitive shortcuts, the most notorious being implicit personality theory, or the halo effect.
Oh, the halo effect. This is classic Solomon Asch territory, right?
So spot on.
Back in the 1940s, he did those studies proving that if we perceive one positive trait in a person, we just blindly blanket them in a whole suite of other positive traits.
You're right on the money with Ash.
It's wild how that works.
It really is. Like, if someone is physically attractive or well-dressed, or simply speaks with a really articulate, confident cadence,
We just assume they have their life together.
our brains automatically and unconsciously assign a whole host of unearned virtues to them. We assume they're honest, intelligent, reliable, morally upright.
We literally put a halo on them.
Exactly. And conversely, there's the horn effect.
Wait, the horn effect, like devil horns?
Yes. It dictates that if someone is socially awkward, or maybe just dressed shabbily, we subconsciously code them as untrustworthy or less competent.
Even if they're brilliant.
Right. We aren't actually reading them at all. We are reading our own hardwired evolutionary biases.
It's essentially like reading a vague daily horoscope, noticing the one single phrase that vaguely matches your morning commute, and deciding the newspaper is psychic.
That is a perfect analogy.
Like, oh, she read a book in the break room once instead of talking to me? She must be a massive introvert who hates collaboration.
Right. You take a micro data point and construct a towering psychological profile based on pure stereotype.
It's so unfair when you say it out loud.
It gets worse.
Yeah.
Because what's wild is that it gets even murkier when we factor in projection.
Oh boy. Projection.
Because then you're just taking your own psychological baggage and forcefully handing it to the other person.
Projection completely scrambles our radar, doesn't it?
Totally. If we look at the neuroscience of how our brains process reality, The amygdala, which is our emotional processing center, heavily colors our perception based on our internal state.
So my mood changes the data.
Exactly. We don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are.
So, okay, let's say I wake up feeling particularly insecure about a project I'm running.
Okay, realistic scenario.
Very realistic for me. And I walk into a meeting feeling completely exposed. Am I just going to misread the entire room?
Inevitably. You literally can't help it. If you are harboring insecurity, you are going to see deceit and judgment in other people's neutral faces, even when there is absolutely none there.
That explains so much of corporate America.
Right. If a colleague avoids eye contact with you during that meeting, your insecure brain immediately signals, oh, they hate my project. They think I'm a fraud.
When in reality, what's actually happening?
In reality, that colleague's child just kept them up all night, and they're just desperately trying to keep their eyes open. It has nothing to do with you.
So what we think we see in others usually says way more about our own fears than their actual intentions.
100%.
To become clinical observer of human behavior, you really have to actively strip away your mood, your biases, and your assumptions.
You have to force yourself into a state of objective neutrality.
Like a blank slate.
Exactly. A blank slate. You have to stop acting like a psychic relying on gut feelings and start acting like a forensic behavioral analyst.
I love that. Forensic behavioral analyst.
And an analyst never walks onto a scene and starts guessing. They look for the baseline.
Okay, let's unpack the baseline. Because I feel like this is where everyone messes up.
It is the absolute foundation.
Because you can't possibly spot an anomaly, right? A deviation from the norm.
Right.
If you have absolutely no idea what normal looks like for that specific individual in the first place.
Exactly. A baseline is simply how a person's autonomic nervous system operates under normal, completely stress-free conditions.
So, like, how they are when they're just chilling?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
What is their resting heart rate, metaphorically speaking? How much physical space do they take up?
Are they a loud talker or a fast talker?
Right. How rapid is their speech? Do they naturally use their hands when they talk, or are they completely statuesque?
You know, I have a perfect, actually somewhat embarrassing real-life example of getting this totally wrong because I completely ignored the baseline.
Oh, please share. I love these.
Okay, so a few years ago, I was pitching this major new initiative to a cross-departmental team. High stakes.
Very stressful.
Yeah. And there's this guy, let's call him Dave, sitting right in the front row. And Dave is just scowling. I mean, arms locked across his chest, heavy frown, brow just deeply furrowed.
Oh no, the classic scowl.
I spent the entire 20-minute pitch sweating bullets, just completely derailed, convinced that Dave was mentally shredding every single word coming out of my mouth.
Let me guess. Dave wasn't shredding the pitch at all.
No. Dave approached me right after we wrapped, shook my hand, and said it was the clearest, most compelling strategy he'd heard all quarter.
That is hilarious.
I was completely baffled. But then, I started actually observing Dave over the next month.
And what did you find?
Dave always frowns. Literally always.
There it is.
He frowns when he's reading casual emails. He frowns when he's eating a phenomenal sandwich from the deli. He frowns when he's listening intently.
He's just a frowner.
Dave just possesses a naturally intense, highly concentrated, resting facial structure. That's just his face.
That is the ultimate baseline fallacy in action right there.
It really is.
You took a single nonverbal behavior, the furrowed brow, and you applied a generalized, universal meaning to it. You assumed frown equals anger.
Right, because for me, a frown means I'm upset.
Exactly. But you were lacking Dave's specific autonomic baseline.
I had no data on Dave.
If you had observed him in a low-stakes environment beforehand, you would have logged that for Dave. A furrowed brow translates to, I am deeply engaged.
Wow.
Now, if Dave was suddenly leaning back, smiling goofily, and staring at the ceiling during your pitch,
that would be his anomaly.
yes, that would be the cue requiring investigation.
Yeah.
Because that is out of character frame.
So observation isn't a snapshot at all. It's a moving average.
Very well put.
I need multiple data points over time.
Yeah.
Like, how do they talk when they are relaxed? What is their vocal pitch when they are just making small talk at the coffee machine?
Yes. You need the control group, which is their relaxed self. And that baseline data leads us directly into the next critical component.
Which is?
Context. Behavioral analysis without environmental context is worse than useless. It's actively misleading.
Because the environment entirely dictates the appropriateness of the behavior.
100%.
Like, if someone is speaking incredibly loudly, face flushed, gesturing wildly in a sterile office hallway, they might be unhinged or furious.
You'd call security.
Right. But if you take those exact same biological markers, the exact same behavior, and place them in the middle of a crowded, noisy nightclub while trying to order a drink.
They're just trying to overcome the acoustic interference. The behavior is identical, but the environment changes the diagnosis completely.
Context is everything.
It really is. And this also heavily applies to cultural context.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, in several Mediterranean or South American cultures, loud, animated, physically proximate conversation is the baseline for showing passion and interpersonal engagement.
It means they like you and care about the topic.
Exactly. But in certain Northern European or East Asian cultures,
Yeah.
deploying that exact same intense physical behavior in a boardroom,
Oh, that would go over terribly.
it'll be coded as incredibly hostile, aggressive, and totally dysregulated.
So if you ignore the room, the culture, and the noise level, you're basically trying to understand a movie by watching a random 10-second clip out of sequence.
You are destined to misinterpret it.
But, there's one piece of context that I think people chronically overlook. And honestly, it's the hardest one to admit to yourself.
You're talking about the observer effect.
Yes, the observer effect. In physics, it's the principle that the mere act of observing a phenomenon inevitably alters that phenomenon.
And it maps perfectly to psychology.
Right. In behavioral psychology, it means that you, the person watching, are part of the context.
You are contaminating the room just by being in it.
Just by walking into the room, you are changing the baseline of the person you are trying to read.
Because you carry your own social gravity.
Yeah, let's say I'm interviewing someone for a position on my team. I control the outcome of their immediate future. I hold the power in that dynamic.
The stakes of the room spike the exact moment you sit down.
So their baseline is instantly gone.
Which means their autonomic nervous system reacts to the threat of failure. You are no longer seeing their true, relaxed personality at all.
I'm seeing their stress personality.
You are observing their high-stakes, please hire me, terrified of saying the wrong thing personality.
Which is very different from who they actually are.
Very. Their breathing gets shallow, their posture stiffens, their vocal pitch might actually rise slightly due to vocal cord tension.
And if I log that as their permanent baseline,
You're going to write them off as a naturally rigid, incredibly anxious person, when really you just made them anxious.
which perfectly explains why taking a candidate out for a casual coffee or lunch after the formal gauntlet is such a necessary tactic.
It is the best thing you can do.
Because you are intentionally shifting the environmental context to lower the observer effect and catch a glimpse of the actual baseline.
You are trying to strip away the artificial tension.
So, okay, let's summarize where we are. Once you have that baseline calibrated and you factored in the environment and your own intimidating presence,
Then the real fun begins.
right, then you can start looking for the invisible forces driving their decisions.
The hidden engines of the psyche.
The hidden engines. If we want to predict how someone will behave, we have to understand what motivates them deep down.
And from an evolutionary standpoint, that always boils down to the ancient tug of war, the pleasure-pain principle.
Pleasure and pain, the classics.
It is the most primal binary in our entire neurological software. Every single action we take, whether we realize it or not, is an attempt to either acquire a pleasure reward or avoid a pain stimulus.
But the critical insight for reading people is realizing that these two forces are not weighted equally in the brain, right?
Not even close to equally.
Evolutionarily speaking, survival trumps happiness every single time. Loss aversion, pain avoidance has to be stronger, right?
Exponentially stronger. I mean, the amygdala processes threats significantly faster and with much higher priority than the reward pathways process pleasure.
Because survival means avoiding the tiger, not stopping to admire the pretty sunset.
Exactly. If you admire the sunset, you get eaten. Let's look at Daniel Kahneman's work on loss aversion.
Oh, I love Kahneman.
Psychologically, the pain of losing $1,000 is far more intense than the pleasure of gaining $1,000.
It hurts so much more than it feels good.
It's completely asymmetrical.
Which explains so much seemingly irrational human behavior. I mean, it's why someone will stay in a miserable, soul-crushing corporate job for 15 years.
We see it all the time.
Logically, the pleasure of pursuing their dream career should pull them out of there, but the perceived pain, that terrifying unknown variable of financial ruin or failure, completely paralyzes them.
The fear of the unknown threat completely outweighs the guarantee of joy.
Emotion and threat avoidance will just hijack the logical prefrontal cortex almost every time.
It really will. So when you are trying to decode a colleague or a friend, and they are making a decision that seems completely illogical on paper.
Stop looking at the math.
Exactly. Look at the emotional threat. Ask yourself, What specific pain are they desperately trying to avoid right now?
This connects directly to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but applied practically in the real world.
How so? Walk me through it.
Okay, so if I'm trying to pitch a highly creative, risky, change the world initiative to a department head,
A very noble pitch.
right, which is a pitch aimed straight at the top of Maslow's pyramid, self-actualization. But if that department head is secretly terrified that their budget is getting slashed next quarter,
Oh, your pitch is going to bomb.
spectacularly, because you are speaking to the top of the pyramid while they are violently defending the base.
Their safety and security are actively threatened.
They literally can't hear my creative ideas.
They cannot prioritize your creative vision when they are emotionally bracing for an impact to their survival.
And if you don't read that underlying fear, you'll walk away thinking they just lack vision or they're boring.
When in reality, they're just trying to keep the lights on and not get fired.
Wow. And you know, the most fragile thing we are constantly trying to protect, the thing that triggers the biggest threat response, is the ego, our self-image.
Oh, the ego is massive. The desire to defend the ego is arguably one of the biggest behavioral engines.
It makes people do crazy things.
It does. Leon Festinger's theory of cognitive dissonance shows us exactly what happens when our ego is threatened.
Cognitive dissonance is so uncomfortable.
When a person's core belief about themselves clashes with reality, the brain experiences profound psychological distress. It reacts almost as violently as it would to a literal physical threat.
So if someone's entire identity is built around being the infallible, smartest person in the room,
Which is a very fragile identity.
very. And I casually point out a glaring formula error in their spreadsheet in front of the whole team. I haven't just corrected a typo.
Well, not to them, you haven't.
I've deployed a tactical strike on their entire identity.
You have attacked their survival mechanism. And what do? Do they gracefully accept the correction?
Rarely.
Never. They deploy intense defense mechanisms. They rationalize the error. They project incompetence onto the software.
Oh, Excel is glitching again.
Exactly. Or they blame you for providing confusing data. They will twist reality into an absolute pretzel rather than admit the mistake, because admitting the mistake equals an ego death.
So when we see someone reacting with radically disproportionate anger or defensiveness to a minor issue, we aren't seeing a logical debate.
No, logic has left the building.
We are watching a frightened ego desperately trying to armor up.
That is exactly what you are watching.
We all carry these hidden engines. We're running from pain, protecting our egos, trying to project total control. But evolution has a funny way of betraying us.
It certainly does.
The brain tries to hide the lie, but the body leaks the truth.
The body always betrays the mind. And this is exactly where we enter the science of nonverbal leakage.
Okay, before we go deeper into nonverbals, I have to bring something up because I see it constantly on LinkedIn and in pop psychology blogs.
How do you know what's me?
The famous 55387 rule from Albert Mehrabian.
Yep. The most misunderstood stat in psychology.
People love to quote this, claiming that 55% of all communication is body language, 38% is tone of voice, and only 7% is the actual words.
It drives me crazy.
But hold on, isn't that stat wildly taken out of context? I mean, Mehrabian's original study was incredibly narrow, right? It wasn't about someone giving you a quarterly earnings report.
I am so glad you pushed back on that, because the misapplication of Mehrabian's research is one of the most frustrating myths in behavioral science.
Right, it doesn't even make logical sense.
You are entirely correct. Mehrabian himself has spent decades trying to correct the record on this. That formula only applies in a very specific scenario.
What's the scenario?
It only applies when a person is communicating feelings or attitudes, and their words are completely incongruent with their nonverbal cues.
Right, so if I'm giving you directions to the airport, the words are 100% of the communication. My posture doesn't change the highway exit.
Exactly. Turn left doesn't mean turn right just because my arms are crossed.
But if my jaw is clenched, my arms are crossed, I'm glaring at you, and I say through gritted teeth, I'm perfectly fine, everything is great.
Yes. That is when the rule applies. When the rational brain chooses the words, like saying, I am fine, but the primitive limbic brain controls the body, like the clenched jaw and crossed arms.
The listener will instinctively trust the body.
They will trust the 93% nonverbal data. Because the limbic system, which is our evolutionary alarm system, reacts to emotional stimuli instantly, before the rational neocortex can even formulate a lie.
You cannot easily consciously override your limbic system.
It is incredibly difficult to do.
Which explains why faking an emotion looks so fundamentally creepy to us. Take the fake smile.
Oh, the fake smile is a perfect example.
We've all seen it. The customer service smile, or the politician's smile. Why does our brain immediately flag it as insincere?
It all comes down to neuroanatomy. A genuine smile of joy, which is clinically called a Duchenne smile, is generated involuntarily by the limbic system.
It just happens naturally.
Right. It sends signals that contract the zygomatic major muscle, which pulls the lips up, and the orbicular oculi muscle, which crinkles the corners of the eyes.
Oh, so you get the crow's feet. The eyes actually light up.
Exactly. But when you decide to fake a smile for a photo, that command doesn't come from the limbic system.
Where does it come from?
It comes from the motor cortex. And the motor cortex can easily command the mouth muscles, but it struggles to voluntarily fire those specific eye muscles.
So you get a Pan Am smile.
Yes, the Pan Am smile. The mouth is stretched, but the eyes remain completely dead and uninvolved. Furthermore, motor cortex expressions are often slightly asymmetrical.
They pull a little harder on one side of the face.
Usually, yes.
And even if we don't know the neurobiology of the motor cortex, our subconscious threat detection system registers that asymmetry and just screams inauthentic.
Which leads us perfectly into the realm of microexpressions. If the limbic system is fighting the conscious brain to leak the truth, microexpressions are the ultimate battleground.
This is Dr. Paul Ekman's territory. These are those split-second, involuntary flashes of emotion that cross the face before the conscious brain can slap the mask back on.
Lasting sometimes as little as 1/25th of a second. Ekman's research in the late 1960s completely revolutionized behavioral science.
It really changed everything.
It did. At the time, the prevailing academic belief championed by people like Margaret Mead was that facial expressions were culturally learned, just like language.
Like you learn to smile from seeing other people smile.
Exactly. Ekman suspected otherwise. So he traveled to the highlands of Papua New Guinea to study the Four People, which was an isolated tribe that had practically no contact with Western media or culture.
So no television, no magazines, no way to learn how an American smiles or frowns.
Precisely. They were totally isolated. Ekman told them stories designed to elicit specific emotions and asked them to point to photographs of faces that matched the story.
And what did he find?
He also photographed the tribe's people reacting to scenarios. What he proved definitively is that the facial expressions for 7 core emotions are biologically hardwired into the human nervous system.
Happiness, sadness, disgust, anger, fear, surprise, and contempt.
Those are the universal 7.
So a micro-expression of disgust, that slight wrinkling of the nose and raising of the upper lip, it looks exactly the same on a Wall Street CEO as it does on a hunter-gatherer in an isolated rainforest.
It's universal human code. It's driven by cranial nerve 7, directly linked to the brainstem.
That is fascinating. But here's the practical problem for all of us listening. Catching a 1/25th of a second twitch in a real-time conversation is notoriously difficult without hundreds of hours of video playback training.
Oh, it's nearly impossible for a layperson.
If you just sit in a meeting staring unblinkingly at your boss's face trying to catch a micro-expression of contempt, you're going to trigger a massive observer effect, and frankly, it's going to look like a total creep.
Yeah, intense, unbroken eye contact is a primate dominance threat. You're going to ruin the baseline immediately.
Right, so if we aren't Ekman-level savants, what is the practical alternative? How do we read the body without staring like a sociopath?
You look for broader, sustained nonverbal leakage. You look for pacifying behaviors, and crucially, you look for clusters.
Let's hit pacifying behaviors first, because I catch myself doing this all the time when I'm stressed.
We all do. Pacifying behaviors are basically adult self-soothing mechanisms.
What triggers them?
When we experience psychological stress or cognitive overload, our brain demands that we calm the autonomic nervous system down. We accomplish this by stimulating nerve endings, primarily through touch.
And that releases calming neurotransmitters.
Exactly. It's biological trickery.
So it's the adult equivalent of a toddler sucking their thumb or carrying a security blanket.
That is a perfect comparison. When someone is uncomfortable, they will subconsciously start touching themselves. They will wring their hands, repeatedly rub their thighs, or adjust their clothing over and over.
I play with my watch band when I'm nervous.
That's a classic one. But the most significant pacifying zone is the neck. The neck is incredibly rich in vagus nerve endings.
And what does the vagus nerve do?
Stimulating the vagus nerve directly lowers the heart rate and blood pressure.
So when a guy in a high-stakes negotiation suddenly starts tugging at his collar or massaging the back of his neck.
He is literally trying to manually lower his heart rate because he feels deeply threatened by the conversation.
Wow.
Women might touch the suprasternal notch, which is the little hollow at the base of the throat, or they might play with a necklace.
So if you ask a vendor, can you guarantee delivery by Friday? And their hand immediately shoots up to cover their neck hollow before they say yes.
Their limbic system is actively leaking the fact that Friday is a massive problem.
Okay, but we have to be careful here, right? Because earlier we talked about the danger of reading one gesture in isolation.
Yeah, the biggest amateur mistake.
Because if I cross my arms, maybe I'm defensive, or maybe the AC in the studio is just blasting and I'm freezing.
Yeah, that is the cardinal rule of behavioral analysis. A single cue means absolutely nothing. It is a letter, not a word.
So how do we make a word?
To accurately read someone, you must look for clusters. That means 3 or more congruent nonverbal cues occurring simultaneously that all point to the same underlying emotional state.
3 or more. So if I cross my arms, but my shoulders are relaxed, my jaw's loose, and I'm leaning forward with sustained eye contact.
You're probably just cold or comfortable. There is no cluster of distress.
But if I cross my arms and my jaw muscles visibly clench, and I break eye contact to look down, and I physically blade my torso away from you toward the exit.
Now we have a pattern. We have a solid cluster of avoidance and defensiveness.
And the timing has to be linked to the conversation, right?
Timing is everything. You have to observe the cluster happen in reaction to a specific stimulus.
So if I ask you about the Q3 budget, and a split second later you deploy that defensive cluster.
The budget is the trigger. You've hit a nerve.
It's all about stimulus and response. But let's pivot slightly to situations where we don't have the luxury of observing someone for an hour to track their clusters.
High-speed environments.
Right. What if we are at a networking event or a cocktail party, and we need to assess the room dynamics in seconds? We're getting into what I think of as the Jedi mind tricks of behavioral psychology.
Rapid assessment techniques. This relies heavily on the concept of thin slicing. Nalini Ambati and Robert Rosenthal pioneered incredible research on this in the 90s.
This is the research Malcolm Gladwell popularized in his book Blink, right? Where our unconscious mind finds patterns based on impossibly narrow slices of experience.
Yes, exactly. Ambati and Rosenthal showed college students silent 10-second video clips of professors teaching.
Just 10 seconds, with no audio.
Just 10 seconds. And based only on those 10 seconds of nonverbal behavior, the students rated the professors on traits like warmth, confidence, and optimism.
And the crazy part is, when they compared those 10-second snap judgments to the actual evaluations given by students who sat in the professor's class for an entire semester,
The ratings were almost identical.
the correlation was staggering. How is that even possible?
Because our unconscious brain is a supercomputer. It is processing millions of microscopic, nonverbal data points, like posture, microexpressions, spatial relations, far faster than our conscious linguistic brain can articulate.
So when you meet someone and instantly get a bad vibe, or the hair on your arm stands up, it's not magic.
Not at all. It's your thin slicing mechanism recognizing a cluster of dangerous or deceitful cues.
But wait, didn't we establish in the beginning that my gut is a prejudiced liar that relies on the halo effect and projection?
Yes, we did.
How do I know if I'm thin slicing accurately or if I'm just stereotyping based on my own biases?
That is the million-dollar question right there. You listen to the gut, but you verify with the conscious brain.
Clarify with the conscious brain. Okay.
The gut feeling is an alarm bell, not a conviction. If you get a sudden bad vibe, you don't instantly judge the person. You say to yourself, my limbic system just flagged something. What was it?
Oh, I see.
Then you actively use your conscious brain to look for the empirical clusters. Are their smiles asymmetrical? Are they pacifying? Use the fast brain to alert you and the slow brain to investigate.
That makes total sense. You upgrade the gut feeling from a verdict to an investigation. What's another rapid assessment trick for reading a room?
One of the most powerful is observing social gravity.
I love this concept. Paint the picture for us.
Imagine you are sitting in a boardroom or at a dinner party with 8 people. Someone tells a reasonably funny joke, and the entire group erupts into genuine, spontaneous laughter.
Okay, everyone is laughing.
In that exact split second of shared amusement, do not look at the person who told the joke. Watch where everyone else's eyes instinctively dart.
Because when we laugh, our social armor drops completely.
Completely. In a moment of genuine laughter, People subconsciously and instantly look at the person in the group they feel the strongest emotional connection to.
Or the person whose validation they crave the most, right?
Yes, they are checking in. They want to know, are we sharing this? Does the alpha of the group find this funny too?
It maps the invisible power dynamics of the room instantly. If 6 people laugh and immediately look at the quiet woman sitting at the very end of the table, she is the true center of social gravity.
Regardless of who actually has the highest job title, she
Yeah.
holds the social power.
It reveals the real emotional hierarchy. That is such a cool trick.
Another phenomenal rapid read tool is tracking mirror neurons in action. This was discovered by Giacomo Rizzolatti and his team in Italy.
Your neurons are fascinating.
They are. Mirror neurons fire both when an animal acts and when the animal observes the same action performed by another. It's the biological foundation of empathy and social bonding.
It's basically why yawns are contagious, right?
Precisely. When two people are in deep rapport, when they feel psychologically aligned, their limbic systems will subconsciously force their bodies to mirror each other.
So they start matching.
They will adopt the same posture, match their breathing rates, and even echo each other's vocal cadence.
So if I lean forward, plant my elbows on the table, and steeple my fingers, and 2 minutes later, the client I'm pitching subconsciously adopts the exact same posture.
You are locked in. You have deep rapport.
That is so powerful.
And you can actively test this in a negotiation. Make a subtle but distinct posture shift. Cross your legs or lean back and rest your chin in your hand. Wait 60 seconds.
And see if they follow me.
If the other person mirrors you, you have social influence and alignment in that moment.
And if they don't.
If they remain rigidly frozen or cross their arms and lean away, you have a rapport disconnect. You need to fix the emotional connection before you try to close the deal.
These nonverbal cues are incredible, but what if I need to quickly map their actual values, like the things that motivate them behind closed doors?
Values are tricky.
If you ask a direct question like, what are your core values? You just get a rehearsed, sanitized PR response like, I value integrity and hard work. It's completely meaningless.
Because direct questions about character trigger the ego defense mechanisms we talked about earlier. People will tell you who they want to be, not who they actually are.
So how do we get the real answer?
If you want indirect intel, you have to look at behavioral residue, not philosophical claims. One technique is the 7 stories exercise.
Right, so instead of asking them what they value, you ask them to tell a story about a time they succeeded.
Exactly. You ask them to describe a moment they are intensely proud of. And as they talk, you don't listen to the accomplishment itself. You listen to the framework.
You listen to how they did it.
Right. Did they succeed by outsmarting a competitor and winning a zero-sum game? Did they succeed by building a coalition and sharing the credit? Or did they succeed by locking themselves in a basement for 80 hours and outworking everyone?
The concrete behaviors they highlight reveal their true operational values.
Because it's how they actually behave when things matter.
It's like asking the hypothetical lottery question. If you won $50 million tomorrow and never had to work again, how would you spend your Tuesday?
That's a great one.
It strips away the survival pain avoidance we talked about earlier and reveals their raw desires. Do they isolate on a private island? Do they start a foundation? Do they buy a fleet of sports cars to flex on the people who doubted them?
The actions reveal the engine. And the best part is, we don't even have to ask questions to gather this intel. We leave behavioral residue everywhere.
Behavioral residue.
Sam Gosling's research on the psychology of physical spaces, his whole concept of Snoop, shows that our desks, our cars, and our digital footprints are massive extensions of our nonverbal communication.
The environment acts as an identity claim. So the guy with the immaculately clean, starkly minimalist desk with exactly one framed photo aligned perfectly to the edge of his monitor.
He is projecting high conscientiousness. He likely requires control and predictability in his environment to lower his cognitive load.
And you contrast that with the person whose desk is a chaotic, colorful mountain of papers, quirky stress toys, and half-empty coffee cups.
That person scores higher on openness to experience. They might be highly creative, though easily distracted, prioritizing expression over structured order.
And social media amplifies this to an extreme. If someone's feed is 100% heavily curated, filtered selfies.
They are actively broadcasting an identity claim that relies heavily on external, physical validation for self-esteem.
And if their feed is entirely abstract landscape photography with 0 humans present.
They might be broadcasting a desire for privacy, intellectual observation, or a detachment from social performance. Without saying a single word, they're handing you the instruction manual to their psyche.
Right, we built the profile. We know how to strip our biases, track the baseline, monitor the clusters, and thin slice the room.
We have a lot of tools now.
Yeah. But we have to address the final boss of behavioral analysis. What happens when you are sitting across from someone, you ask them a direct question, they look you dead in the eye, and they tell you a bald-faced lie? We need lie detection 101.
This is the most highly requested and simultaneously the most myth-ridden skill in the world. Let's start by actively destroying some pop culture garbage.
Let me guess. The eye movement thing. The whole neurolinguistic programming idea that if a person looks up and to the left, they are accessing a memory, but if they look up and to the right, they are constructing a lie.
Pure, unadulterated fiction. It has been tested rigorously in clinical settings and completely debunked.
Completely fake.
Totally fake. There's absolutely no scientific correlation between specific eye directions and deception. Furthermore, there is no single Pinocchio's nose.
What do you mean?
There is no one specific twitch, blink rate, or cough that universally screams LIE.
So if there's no single tell, what is the polygraph actually measuring? What are we looking for when we think someone is lying?
We are looking for the biological exhaust fumes of two massive internal struggles: autonomic tension and cognitive load.
Autonomic tension and cognitive load.
Okay, tension we have covered, right. The limbic system leaking stress because it fears getting caught. But cognitive load is the real key to detecting deception.
Let's break down cognitive load. Why is lying so hard on the brain?
Because telling the truth is neurologically cheap. When you tell the truth, you simply access a stored memory in the hippocampus and recite it. It takes very little bandwidth.
But fabricating a lie
Requires immense, sustained computing power from the prefrontal cortex.
It's like rendering a 4K video while having 40 Google Chrome tabs open. The fan starts spinning, the system heats up.
That is the perfect analogy. When a person is lying, they have to invent a plausible story. They have to continually cross-reference that story against known facts so it makes sense.
And they have to remember exactly what they told you last week so they don't contradict themselves.
Plus, they have to actively monitor your face to see if you are buying the lie. And they have to artificially suppress their own pacifying behaviors to look natural. The brain is operating at 99% capacity.
So the system is fragile. When the cognitive load gets too heavy, the processing speed drops, glitches occur, the mask slips.
Exactly.
So if I suspect a lie, my strategy isn't to accuse them. My strategy is to secretly open 20 more Chrome tabs in their brain until their system crashes.
Exactly. This completely changes how you approach an interrogation. Novices think you should slam your hands on the desk, shine a bright light, and aggressively demand the truth. Where were you on the night of the 14th?
Which is terrible because if you act aggressive, you trigger their fight or flight survival response. They will instantly show massive autonomic tension.
Right. But you won't know if they're sweating because they're lying or if they're sweating because you are screaming at them. You've ruined the baseline with your own observer effect.
You've contaminated the crime scene.
Exactly. The absolute best interrogators in the world, like elite law enforcement, intelligence operatives, they do not act like aggressive bad cops. They act like confused, curious, highly empathetic friends.
The friendly interview approach.
Yes. You want to give the subject as much psychological safety and conversational space as possible to spin their web. Because the larger the web, the more intricate the details, the more likely they are to get tangled in it.
We want to give them enough conversational rope to trip themselves up. So how do we actively increase that cognitive load without them realizing it?
We use specific cognitive interviewing tactics. The first is what we call the detail trap, or temporal disruption.
Temporal disruption. Disrupting their timeline.
Precisely. When a liar invents a story, they almost always script it chronologically. First I woke up, then I drove here, then the tire blew out, then I called the tow truck. They memorize the script sequentially from A to Z.
So how do you break it?
To test the integrity of the memory, you casually ask for specific sensory details, completely out of chronological order.
Okay, let's role play this. An employee tells me they are 2 hours late because they had a flat tire on the highway. I don't demand a receipt. I play the empathetic friend.
Let's hear it.
I'd say, "Oh man, that is so stressful. I'm so sorry. Hey, when you were standing out there waiting for the tow truck, was it raining where you were? What color was the tow truck?"
Perfect. Because they didn't write weather conditions or truck color into their chronological script, their overloaded prefrontal cortex has to frantically invent a new detail in real time.
So how does a truth teller respond?
A truth teller will easily access the real memory. No, it wasn't raining, but it was freezing, and the truck was white.
But a liar.
A liar will show a micropause. You will see cognitive hesitation. Their eyes might dart around as they literally construct the answer.
And then what?
And then you wait 20 minutes and you ask them to tell the story backward.
So right before the guy in the white truck showed up, you were just sitting in the cab.
Yes. A truth teller can jump around a genuine memory like chapters in a book. A liar will stumble horribly if you force them to recite a memorized script backward. The cognitive load is simply too high.
That is brilliantly subtle. What is the next tactic?
The subtle misquote. This is a remarkably low-pressure way to test the structural integrity of a story. As they're talking, you repeat a minor piece of their narrative back to them, but you intentionally alter one small detail.
So you said you finally got to the client dinner around 8:30, right? When they originally told me they arrived at 8.
Exactly. Think about how a truth teller reacts to that. Their memory of the event is solid. If you misquote them, they will almost immediately and comfortably correct you. No, I said 8.
But if they are lying?
Their cognitive load is maxed out. They are so mentally exhausted and so desperate for you to just agree with their narrative and end the conversation that they will frequently just nod and adopt your false detail into their lie.
Yeah, around 8:30. Because their brain is focused on survival and agreement, not factual accuracy.
Exactly. The moment they agree to a fabricated detail that you just invented, you know the foundation is entirely rotten. They've incorporated your lie into their lie to relieve the tension.
And is there a final indicator?
The final major indicator to watch for when the load is high is silence aversion and over-explaining.
This makes sense. Silence is a vacuum, and it's terrifying if you're guilty.
If I ask a truth teller a mundane question like, "What did you have for lunch last Thursday?" What do they say?
I would say I have absolutely no idea. I can barely remember yesterday.
And you're perfectly comfortable saying that. A truth teller doesn't feel a burning need to prove their innocence to me. They are fine with the silence.
But a liar can't handle it.
A liar cannot tolerate silence because silence feels like doubt. They feel an intense, overwhelming urge to convince you of their fabricated reality.
So they fill the vacuum.
They fill it with a fire hose of unnecessary, hyper-specific details to make the lie seem airtight. If you ask a liar what they had for lunch last Thursday, they won't say, "I don't know." They will say, "Oh, I went to that Italian deli on 4th Street. You know, the one with the cracked neon sign? I had the turkey pesto panini, no tomatoes. And I sat near the back because the AC was leaking."
It's entirely too much detail for a mundane memory. It's not a recollection, it's a performance.
They are actively trying to sell me the story, rather than just relaying the story.
So if I ask a simple question and I get a 5-minute defensive monologue full of unasked for justifications, the system is overheating.
You've broken them.
This is an incredibly powerful, almost overwhelming toolkit we've built today. Let me do a crisp summary to lock this in.
Go for it.
Step 1. We drop the ego and the projection. We stop relying on the halo effect and Ash's biases. Step 2. We establish the autonomic baseline over time. We need to know Dave frowns when he's happy.
Yes, baseline is key.
Step 3. We factor in the cultural and environmental context, and we account for our own observer effect. Step 4. We look for the underlying evolutionary engines. Are they running toward pleasure or desperately avoiding pain and defending a bruised ego?
Spot on.
Step 5. We watch for nonverbal leakage and pacifying behaviors, but we never rely on a single cue. We demand clusters. Step 6. We utilize thin slicing and watch the social gravity of the room to gather rapid intel.
And finally,
Step 7. When detecting deception, we drop the aggressive interrogator act. We play the empathetic friend, we spike their cognitive load with the detail trap and the subtle misquote, and we watch them buckle under the weight of their own invention.
you have the complete framework. It is a true paradigm shift in how you navigate human interaction.
It genuinely feels like acquiring a superpower. Like the code of the Matrix is finally visible. But I'll admit, it also feels slightly dangerous, like I'm walking out of here with a weaponized skill set.
And that brings us to the ultimate foundational ethic of this entire discipline. Why do we actually learn this?
To not get tricked.
Well, partially. But if you take these tools and use them to become a manipulative micromanager, or you walk around playing gotcha with your spouse and your friends, trying to trap them in tiny, irrelevant white lies,
You're just gonna ruin your life.
you will end up paranoid, exhausted, and profoundly isolated.
Yeah, no one wants to grab a beer with a human polygraph machine who's constantly analyzing their blink rate.
Exactly. The true goal, the profound life-changing value of reading people, is empathy. It's about achieving a level of connection that words alone cannot bridge.
Empathy over manipulation.
When you learn to read the unsaid, you stop reacting defensively to abrasive surface behaviors. When a colleague snaps at you in a meeting, instead of snapping back and escalating the conflict, your new analytical brain notices that their shoulders are slumped, their breathing is shallow, and they are rubbing their vagus nerve.
You realize they aren't actually attacking me, they are just leaking their own massive internal distress.
Yes, you see the fear behind the anger. You realize they are terrified about a deadline, or their ego has been threatened.
And because you can read that underlying vulnerability, you can respond with support instead of conflict.
You can de-escalate. Reading people allows you to meet human beings where they actually are, not where their ego is pretending to be.
It's about looking past the armor to see the actual person inside. Empathy over manipulation. What a profound place to land. But before we officially wrap this deep dive up, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on as you go about your day.
I love a good takeaway.
We have spent this entire hour talking about how to turn your newly polished magnifying glass outward, how to decode the microexpressions, the baseline shifts, and the hidden pain of every single person you interact with.
A lot of outward focus.
But tomorrow morning, before you walk out the door, I want you to take that magnifying glass and turn it around. Take a hard, objective look in the mirror. Think about your own default autonomic posture. Think about the tone of voice you leak when you're stressed. Look at the behavioral residue covering your desk.
Turn the analysis inward.
Exactly. Now ask yourself, what book are you involuntarily broadcasting to the rest of the world every single day? And more importantly, is it telling the story you actually want them to read?
That is a question that will keep you awake at night, in the best possible way.
Until next time, keep your eyes open and keep diving deep.